Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Gaming is actually bigger than movies, TV shows, and music combined. It's kind of crazy to think about. I promise there's going to be very little AI in this talk. You get to use your phones a lot, and I'm not going to be dancing because I'm going to spare you that. That's my little intro. We're going to start with a little bit of a question if Mentimeter works. So let's see. Yes. Technology is great when it works. Okay, a little bit of a quiz. Who amongst you guys would consider yourself to be a gamer? Yes, no, I don't know. What the heck's a gamer? Those are the options, the clever options that we came up with for this question. Let's see, the numbers are coming in. This is really interesting. Okay, halfway there with the responses, a little more than that. Yes, no's leading the way. I don't know. What's a gamer? Looks like the no's are going to win, unless all the yes people are just waiting until the last minute. Let's see, a few more responses here. But the picture is becoming clear, which is really interesting, because this is what the data tells us, is that when we talk about video games, when we talk about gaming, people's natural inclination isn't to consider themselves to be a gamer, but the reality is the vast majority of the human population actually plays, and they play video games regularly, which we're going to talk about. So this is one of the most common misconceptions, one of the most common stereotypes that this topic still has. My name's Sebastian. I've been founding a couple of companies for the last 12 years at the intersection of gaming, media, AI. I promise this is the only time we'll mention AI. And I authored a book, which that's the purple one, which is completely on brand with Experian, which is kind of awesome, and that just happened that way, about gaming strategies that was triggered by an actual conversation I had with the global marketing team at Danone 5 years ago, who wanted to talk about their digital strategy, and gaming was a key pillar of that. And there needed a bridge to be built. There was a lot of learnings that needed to be made, because there's a lot of misunderstandings around games. One of the biggest ones, how big this industry actually is and how important it is when we think about it from how do we actually engage consumers effectively. And that's what we're going to spend a little bit of time on today. 22 seconds is exactly how long it took for luxury fashion company Burberry to sell out an exclusive digital collection of limited edition characters inside a video game called Blankos. There were 750 of those characters. Each character cost $300, and they were, alongside their latest summer collection. It's all virtual clothes that cost extra on top of that. 22 seconds, and everything was sold out. So not only did Burberry, in this case, make over $200,000, $225,000 to be precise, in revenue in 22 seconds, more importantly, they now had a touch point to a consumer group, to a part of the audience that's out there who their shopping journey is not the traditional shopping journey. They don't go downtown into a store, into the next Burberry store to look for a trench coat. They might have never heard of a trench coat. So they live online, and predominantly, they don't just live online, they live inside video gaming environments. So they just cracked open, in addition to making a lot of money pretty quickly, an entire new consumer touch point. Inside of games, there's people that are spending, this is not fake money, this is real money, $1 million on a limited edition gun inside of a game called Counter-Strike. This is real, this is not a joke. So the point is not that this person might have some other issues we need to talk about. The point is that the engagement, the attention, and the money that's being spent by people inside of those gaming environments is very real. It's very real. And this is what this means for companies and for leaders and decision makers like you guys. We have to think about, where do we meet our consumers? We have to meet them where they are. And we'll find them playing video games. This is what, I'm sure everyone in here has probably seen this man before, or at least heard the name, Tommy Hilfiger. And he said this to me in an interview that we did. Any industry can leverage video games as a dynamic platform for storytelling, product placement, and consumer engagement in ways traditional media simply can't match. And for one, I agree with him. I would actually take it one step further. And the thing that I would add is, I think gaming is actually the new business model. And we'll talk about what that means towards the end. Let's do some table setting first, some table stakes. What are we actually dealing with when we talk about consumer engagement and consumer preferences? Because that's the important baseline that we have to ground ourselves in. One, we have radically different consumer expectations. 80% of consumers are more likely to actually make a purchase with a company and buy the services when they're offered personalized and immersive experience. There's nothing more of an immersive medium than video games, full stop. 64% expect companies to react and respond in real time to consumer requests. Also something that video gaming environments are incredibly powerful at facilitating. Let's look at some more evidence. This chart looks way more complex than it is. It's actually really simple. The teal line is traditional media consumption, TV, newspapers, you name it. The purple line is digital media consumption. Very simple. One down, the other one up. Pretty much opposite trajectories. The key driver behind that purple line is video game growth. Hours played, money spent on a weekly basis, not just in the United States. This is a global phenomenon. And yes, we had a peak during COVID. It was a little bit inflated, tapered after that, but we've actually recovered and we're now back to COVID levels, which is really, really interesting. Let's look at some more evidence. And this is also really simple. TV subscriptions out the window. People are canceling their, old school TV subscriptions. And this one's crazy. The number of adults who actually consume all of their news and entertainment via cable TV has gone down by 42%. I remember my parents, that's where they got the news from. As you turn the TV on, it's like, that's what you did. Almost half of that's gone away. Meanwhile, 84% of all internet users play video games. So is TV the problem? Let's see. Gen Z, this is Gen Z specifically, they spend 3 times more time inside video gaming environments like Roblox, Fortnite, and Minecraft combined than on all social media channels combined. This is gaming versus social. And social is the knee-jerk reaction of there's nothing more powerful than social media. This chart tells a different story. When you look at Gen Alpha, the plot thickens even more. Gen Alpha is the first generation that we've had that plays games more than they do everything else. And I don't think we have Gen Alpha in the room. But if you guys are anything like me, I was so relieved that reading was on that list. It's like, yes, there's hope. There is hope. So all of this is obvious, okay? Gen Alpha plays games more than anything. Gen Z spends more time on games and on social media. TV subscriptions are going away. 84% of internet users are playing video games. So gaming is powerful. It's out there, everyone does it. So it seems obvious. So why isn't it obvious? Why isn't it obvious? And this is a massive part of the reason. Whenever you talk to someone about video games or a gamer, that's the mental image that comes up. An 18-year-old dude in a basement with a Red Bull or a Monster energy drink and neon lights, and they're playing a shooter game on a PC. So I've got news for you guys. That stereotype has some truth. It has some veracity. It had more veracity 25 years ago, but when you compare it to the actual gaming population today, this is 0.1%. This exact representation of all the people that play games, because this is the reality. We're at a point where 3.6 billion people play video games regularly. To put this number into context, this is more than the populations of India and China combined. This is bigger than any religion we've ever had on planet Earth. This is a massive number. And we'll talk about why games are so powerful in just a little bit. So a lot of people do it. There's real money in it. Bo said it. We're actually approaching 200 billion on an annualized basis in terms of the gaming market. Almost 60% of gamers have spent money on or inside of a video game. Gen Z's numbers are even more, even higher in terms of the share that spends money on items inside of these environments. And this one is one of the craziest statistics to me in terms of propensity and potential for impacting and actually driving real-world revenue for us as in our businesses. 86% of consumers who purchase a virtual item inside of a video game also purchase the corresponding physical item if it exists. There's never been, call it a marketing channel if you want, or a media channel that has an 86% conversion rate from digital to physical. Never. This speaks to the potential. So what makes games so powerful? What makes games so powerful is exactly this. It's this loop. That's what creates immersion. And that's when, a lot of times when we talk about gamification, a lot of, people when they try like, well, we have to make our products, I'm going to use a banking example. We have to make our savings app more addictive. I'm like, no, that's the last thing that you want to do. It's not what you want to do. You want to create habits. You want to create habits and you want to create a loop. You have to send people on a journey because that's what really good games do. It's not about an isolated feature or an isolated mechanic that a game uses. It's about the journey that it's sending people on. And it's this perpetual cycle of, I'm giving you an action, I'm giving you a thing to do. You complete that action, you get instant feedback, you get a reward, you invest more, and I send you back on another action, another to do, and that cycle continues. That's what creates immersion, which is extremely powerful. So you might say, okay, great, immersion's awesome. I feel really immersed in the evening when I'm on my couch and I'm doing this on my mobile phone. Whether it's my daughter and I on the way up here, there's a teenager sitting on the other side of the aisle, and she spent the entire 2-hour flight on TikTok on her device. I felt so bad for her, but that's literally what she was doing. So you could say, yeah, I feel pretty immersed when I do this on my phone. Here's the good news and the bad news, or the news that I have to break to you. That's not immersion. That's your brain on autopilot, which is very different. Okay, immersion's actually really good for your brain. This autopilot, not good. And this is the reason. Doing this on your phone is actually not an action. Social media and social media consumption is a one-directional activity. You're just consuming. That's all it is. And that's why games are so powerful, because it's bidirectional. It's action, reaction. In other words, the thing doesn't work if we're not actively participating. Some people call it a lean-in medium. You have to participate. Where social media is a lean-back medium. It's a passive experience. Netflix is a passive experience. Games, you lean in and you have to participate. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And what speaks to, the popularity of this and the power of this is a number from 2022. The most popular, the most shared, most viewed content on TikTok, on the social media platform, was gaming content. There was 3 trillion views of gaming content just on TikTok. YouTube today is actually very similar. The most watched, commented, shared, downloaded content on YouTube across all of YouTube is gaming-related content. So this is one of my favorite slides. Because this is to every marketing manager and media manager that's maybe in the room, and you guys are deciding where should we spend our advertising budget, you should have these numbers in mind. Your average social media post gets about 1.3 seconds of engagement. Your average, this is for Roblox, branded experience or branded game on Roblox gets about 11 minutes of engagement. This is a little more than 500 times more the amount of active engagement you get from consumers when you compare a gaming environment to a social media environment. So great, we've got it all figured out. But despite all this evidence, this is still the reality. This is the global total advertising spend. If you put percentages to that, gaming as a whole globally gets about 5% most, 3 to 5, of the global total advertising spend from all of the companies. Everything else gets 95%, little more than 730 billion. So that's the social media stuff, that's AdWords, you name it, everything else. So how can a medium that gets all the attention, all the engagement, all the monetization from consumers, where they spend all of their time, only get this little of the budget? And this is the interesting part. I see this disconnect as a massive opportunity, because there was a medium about 25 years ago that was at exactly that same inflection point. Anyone want to, I know this is not a Mentimeter question, at least it's not showing here. Anyone want to take a guess what that medium was? 25 years ago, got all the attention, all the consumer engagement, monetization started to happen, very little of the marketing spend from companies that was going into it. Yep, the category, social media. Yep, that's it. Gaming today is where social media was at 25 years ago. That's an important takeaway, because things are about to change. And the moment the floodgates open, money's going to pour into the gaming industry, and brands and companies are going to start to understand how massive of an opportunity this space actually is. And to me, this opportunity is unlocked right now for 3 very specific reasons. One, games are marketplaces, which means there's actual revenue that's happening there. There's actual economies around it. This is a 2024 number. There's a total of $15 billion that were made purely off of virtual goods inside gaming environments. Paradigm 2, and this is really important. Gaming is where relationships live. Gen Z, Gen Alpha go to video games specifically for the social connection. And 3, we've already talked about this a little bit, gaming drives real-world purchases. The 86% virtual to physical conversion rate from purchases is extremely important. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how do we get there. If we wanted to start tomorrow and say, like, how do we use this gaming thing, this gaming environment with all its opportunities for us as a company? And I promise we'll talk about some finance-related stuff in a second here, because it is really relevant for any industry. In my book, I lay out 4 really simple pathways where, from a strategic perspective, 1, you could start to integrate yourself with games that already exist. The big advantage is there's already an established audience. People are already there. You don't have to worry about scaling. You can test the waters. It's not really expensive. You can iterate faster and learn and grow from there. 2 would be you start building your own games, or maybe do it together with someone, but you're owning the real estate. You're building your own inventory. You're creating your own audiences, or if you have an existing consumer base and existing audiences, to bring them or enrich the offering that you have with what you're building. We're not going to spend too much time on the Web3 component, but that would be leveraging just blockchain technology underneath, because that's what facilitates a lot of the marketplace transactions. And then you have after sales, you have a thriving marketplace, people sell, resell, and buy items off of each other, which gives longevity to a lot of these economies. And the 4th one would be you may actually make games the product in your portfolio themselves. Let's look at some examples. Chipotle is a really good one. So this was around, do you guys know Chipotle? Burritos, Mexican food? Okay, awesome. So they had a Halloween event 4 years ago, and they called it Burrito Maze. Boo, 2 O's, because ghosts. Anyway, I didn't brand it. Burrito Maze. So they built a maze game on Roblox that was Halloween themed. Halloween's a big deal, not just in the US, but it's a very, very big deal for Chipotle fans, et cetera, et cetera. They gave out free entrees, so you could recoup basically a coupon, a voucher for a burrito that you could redeem. They gave away $1 million of free entrees during that gameplay. So you had to play the game, you had to complete certain missions, yada, yada, yada. You could get virtual items to deck out your avatar as you were playing. You could go into a virtual Chipotle store, actually make your own burrito. I asked the CMO that was running this at the time, Chris Brand, I said, how quickly did you guys recoup that $1 million investment? He looked at me and said, in less than 10 minutes. I'm like, what? In less than 10 minutes, they had that money back. Why? This event led to one of the top 10 digital sales days that the company had in the history of the company. And two, it led to one of the top 10 enrollment days for the rewards members program. And that's how they were able to do the math so quickly, because they know what an average loyalty member, depending on which category they fall into, consumes in terms of Chipotle and the money and the LTV that they get from this type of customer over time. And then they just looked at this, brought in a massive influx of new people that just enrolled into our program, and the math became really, really simple. Chipotle has been one of the most active brands ever since across different gaming environments, and they're doing a very good job there. The New York Times is one of the examples that gets cited the most, because in an industry that's been completely in decline by and large, they are the ones that have actually been able to buck the trend and go against the grain there. They built out the New York Times Games app, true and really authentic to where they came from. Started with crosswords, a lot of different word games, a lot of different puzzle games. Here is the really important part, though. The Games app and the Games offering that they have is the number one driver of all digital revenue growth for the New York Times. So that's the catalyst, and that's still the growth. The growth engine is games. And the other thing, too, is when users come in to the New York Times universe through the gaming side rather than content, or they have the athletic, the sports side, and there's a Wirecutter, I think, on the technology side. A user that comes in through the gaming offering engages with news content faster and more, and with all of the other content verticals that they have, than a user that comes in from any other offering. So it's a strong magnet and engagement driver, basically a cross-pollination across the whole offering. They used to, in the late 30s, the editorial room at the New York Times, the slogan was, people come for the news and they stay for the game. That was the whole crossword puzzle theme. They actually changed it internally to, people come for the games and they stay for the news. That's how important games at the New York Times have become. And just quickly on Peloton, because that's a really interesting one that's going to apply to a lot of you in this room too. Because Peloton is, you guys probably know, they make the bikes, rowers, treadmills, awesome. So they have workout content on their devices, right? Where typically you have to deal with some instructor that's yelling at you while you're already sweating and holding on for dear life in your workout, and then you have a person yell at you. So what they did was, to give people an alternative, they built a video game called Lane Break, which is a bike racing game that you can play while you're doing your workout and you're riding your bike. So the game simulates your workout. 52% of all Peloton workouts globally on a Peloton bike are done inside of a video game as opposed to instructor-led workouts. And people that predominantly work out via this video game come back for more workouts on a weekly basis, and the workouts are longer. My favorite example, and one of the companies that you can take a lot of inspiration from if you talk about mastery across all of these different pathways and how you really get into the space, is Adidas, hands down. They are active everywhere, from integrations with Minecraft, digital storefronts, virtual goods, building their own games now. They've really mastered basically the whole orchestration. And what's really interesting too is they started building a lot of their own games first, then they withdrew from that. Then they started integrating more, found more success there, but they're really looking at it as a portfolio of activities rather than, well, we're doing just one thing and we're going to one gaming platform and we're betting everything that we can do in this space on this one thing. There's a whole case study in the book, probably like 15 pages just on Adidas, and it's really, really worth reading. They're one of the best ones out there. We talked about gaming. I said gaming, I think, is the new business model. So here's what that means, to just give you a little bit of inspiration. When you have a lot of IP holders or fashion companies, consumer goods companies, Adidas talks about this internally too. They're looking at gaming as their new wholesale. So how are they thinking about this? Historically, if they wanted to develop a new sneaker, they would actually make physical sneakers. They would invite people, focus groups, have people try them on, critique, do all this stuff. Now what they can do, they don't do just 1 or 2 samples. They do 100 samples virtually, and they drop them in all these different gaming environments, and they just look at, and a 3D render costs nothing, marginal cost pretty much zero, and then they just look at the traction that all the different items and the different variations of the sneaker gets in all of the different universes. What gets picked up the fastest? What do people wear the most? Do they keep them on? Do they take them off right away? And those signals don't go to the they go straight to the factory, and they go, we need, 2 million of this one, and that goes to retailers in Malaysia. And not like, well, we think we need 100,000, and you put them in storage, and it sits in a warehouse somewhere. It's going to completely change the entire supply chain when you think about warehousing and R&D of what some of these companies can do. In the context of financial services more broadly, one interesting way to look at gaming is gaming could be the new branch. And there's already examples like this. This is a small startup based out of Germany, actually. And they're offering video game-based assessments and education around financial literacy. They have, I think at this point, close to 100,000 people in Southeast Asia playing Mogaland, the game, regularly. And inside of the game, you're learning about financial topics through playing the game. And what's so interesting about it is not only are you actually helping people, but two, this company is accumulating a lot of interesting first-party data that you could use for a lot of different use cases in the financial world, whether it's customer qualification, onboarding, et cetera, et cetera. But it's really rich first-party data that holds signal that other more traditional data sets related to the financial world typically don't hold. Another one, and you guys are all going to be very familiar with this company, is Revolut. Already when they started, 2018, 2019, 2020, the first app when they came out had a lot of really strong gamification principles as part of the actual user experience. I'm actually did some work with Íslandsbanki out of Reykjavik, and we sat down and looked at, okay, well, what's your audience, young audience, Gen Z, okay, great. How do we use gaming and what we can learn from gaming to actually think about a new savings app and a new loyalty app to send people on a journey together? So this is starting to happen more and more. And Revolut is one to keep an eye on because they're actually rumored to be in big acquisition discussions. And they look at gaming even as a massive user acquisition funnel for their product. So they're thinking about games as basically top of funnel. And how can I position myself as Revolut inside of those touch points to bring more and more people into my world and ultimately have them become a Revolut customer? So this is one to definitely keep an eye on. Games are hard. When you talk to any game maker, I know especially in Denmark, there's some iconic ones from Cybo to IO Interactive. There's incredible gaming talent here. If you talk to any of these people, they'll agree. There's like games are really hard. And this is one of the best companies in the world at storytelling, Disney, and you have to expect at all costs, when you go on this journey, you have to expect it to be an iterative journey. So this what looks like a really bad relationship. It looks like a bipolar relationship, which is on and off, and people can't make up their mind. Do we stay together? Do we leave each other? This has been Disney's relationship with video games. Again, probably the marquee company when it comes to entertainment and storytelling. On and off and on and off and on and off. It's not that they're stupid, it's hard. But it seems like this time they're really committed for the long haul, given there's rumors around them potentially wanting to buy Fortnite, et cetera, et cetera. The point that you should take away is, okay, how do we mitigate as much as we can these amplitudes in this journey, especially the downward-facing ones? How do we set us up for success? And this one is a non-negotiable for any new strategy, in my opinion, and any new development, but especially when it comes to this. The foundation has to be, who's your audience? This was actually in the trailer this morning. It's like data is everywhere, yes, but insights are what matter? Absolutely. So I would encourage you guys, spend time and be rigorous about how do we actually get to really valid insights, because this matters to set you up for success. You need a clear understanding of the audience's needs and desires, the actual needs and desires. And you need to do some soul searching too. You need a clear vision of the company's identity, brand values, what do we stand for? And those two ends have to meet. if they don't meet and then you try and show up in those gaming environments, it's going to be inauthentic. And that is the worst that could happen. Then it's better to just stay away at all. Making those two ends meet ensures authenticity, which is extremely important. And this is what we mean with insights. Surface level insights aren't enough. This is what most companies operate off of when they talk about their consumers. So high level demographic data, you'll have some behavioral data, especially in the financial world. You can look at all of the different transaction data. The problem is it's behavioral data and you're looking into the review mirror. Otherwise, you couldn't see it. It happened. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there for you to observe. The challenging part is figuring out the why behind the behavior. If we want to actually meet people where they are, we have to figure out why are they doing the things that they're doing. Does anyone want to take a guess who these two people are? King Charles is one, and who's the other one? Prince of Darkness. That's it. Rest in peace, Ozzy. Okay. Yes, those are the two guys. The point is, they are demographically identical. I mean, one's dead now, but they're identical. But the second you put the pictures next to them, it's like, well, of course those are two different people. You were just looking at the data. You had no idea. It was, well, it's a male born in 48 in the UK, married twice, same dude. Completely different person. So what we need is we have to understand our audience psychologically. That's what we mean with needs, drivers, desires. We have to understand their motivations. What do they value? What do they care about? Personality traits, etc. So there's a really cool tool that I could recommend called Alaris. For any audience, you could browse the whole thing. It's basically like Google search for audiences, which is really, really cool, really easy to use. You could look up, I don't know, neobank audiences or, maybe even, I don't know, Danske Bank. And you can look up, oh, these are people that actually use our services, which is really powerful. So setting the foundation with really good audience insights is number one. The other non-negotiable when you go on this journey is this. You have to have an always-on mindset. Get away from the campaign-driven mindset when you go into gaming. It's like, oh, next month we'll do Roblox, and then in November we'll do Minecraft. What are you doing in between? No one says, well, tomorrow we're doing Instagram, and then in November we're doing TikTok. No. MasterCard, which is really interesting, they've been one of the first ones to move into the gaming space in 2012 already. And this always-on mindset came from Raja, who now left as the CMO. He was there for like 20 years, I think. And he said, within MasterCard, gaming is a 365-day-a-year, 24/7 initiative. It's always on. We're always doing something in this space broadly across all of the different things that it has to offer. And that goes back to the consumer expectations. People want real-time engagement. They want real reactions. They want real interaction and conversation. So gaming offers that. Embrace it and use it. Because if it's just, we're just going to throw our brand into an environment and then we're going to retreat for the next 3 months, you're just leaving a lot of potential untapped. All right, how do we get started? I promise we're closing on this here, so bear with me. This is how, if you were to start tomorrow and say, like, I want to do this gaming thing for our organization, where do we start? This is a really, really, really helpful. If I had to condense this, and if you ask me, just pick one thing, just give me like one thing of what do we really have to do, I would condense this slide and say, recruit the willing and the curious. Because it's so easy to fall into the trap of, okay, gaming is probably a marketing thing, so it should sit with the marketing team. Maybe. That might be right for some organizations. It might be the wrong conclusion for others. For others, it might be a strategy. It fits better there. Within Adidas, it sits under business development. It explicitly doesn't sit with marketing for very specific budgetary constraints and decision-making constraint reasons. So just be mindful of that. Don't fall into the trap of the knee-jerk reaction of, well, where does this thing feel most obvious to go? That might not be the right reaction. And what I mean by recruit the willing and the curious, don't just go by, oh yeah, it's this title, so they should do it. Who wants to do it? Because the people that actually care about this gaming topic in your team and in your organization, they're more likely to actually already be playing games. They'll probably go and read the Reddit threads and Reddit forums and spend some time where your actual consumers are spending time. They're going to go and make the effort and play the games that your consumers or the audience you want to reach are currently playing to figure this out. And they're going to come back much more informed, not because you ask them to do the work, because they care. And you're going to make progress much, much faster on actual really good information. So if you forget everything that I've said the last 37 minutes, I would like you to remember this. Why is gaming powerful? Because to play is human. Video games are simply a digital manifestation of play. And these are, by the way, these are my two daughters, and my eldest is back there. Alexis, hey. They're playing a game, and look at how pumped they are. So if you've ever had a toddler, if you've ever observed a toddler learn about the world, they're doing that through play. The fastest way for adults to learn, for us to rewire our brain, is through play. From an evolutionary, from a biological perspective, there's nothing that is fundamentally more human than play. And that's why games are so powerful. So whenever someone asks me, well, is this really relevant for our company? I'm like, well, does your company deal with human beings? And then the answer is always yes, because it's either externally with clients or internally with employees. And I said, well, then we have to have a conversation, because this is a ground truth that everything starts with. So please stay in touch. You don't have to buy the book, because Experian just awesome. Thank you. So please connect. I'll be here. I'm online on all the typical channels. If you have any questions, just grab me. And we do have 6 minutes for questions now too, which is awesome. So thank you guys very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Really, really interesting.
Thank you.
And a little bit of a different topic, right? So as you said, we do have time for questions. So anybody in the room who got a question for Bastian? I see there's already a hand over there. Can we get a microphone over there? Thank you, Heidi. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So you touched upon it in the latter part of the presentation. I mean, games are mostly about escapism, as in, forget about the real world, do something different. There was a lot of good example of, successful marketing stuff. Do you have anyone where it's failed spectacular, like in backlashes?
Yeah. So a few things. I think games are about escapism for some people, not for everyone. For some it's they want to socialize. For others it's they want to explore. For others it's they want to solve really complex puzzles. For others it's they want to live out, a dream that they've had in their life. So it's not necessarily always about escapism. I just wanted to point that out. For some, you're right, but it's not everyone plays games because they're trying to escape. I think that's important, because it always has this negative connotation of that people go into these worlds because they're really upset with what's going on in their real life. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I play video games and I'm pumped about real life. So there's nothing to that end there. I think that's important. Something where it failed spectacularly, like every single week, there's another one where it fails spectacularly. And I think the key thing, if you look at the learnings there that people get wrong, it's when brands and companies show up in these environments and they're trying to be something that they're not. That's this authenticity component. Don't bend yourself over backwards and don't half-ass it. So it's like if you go into an environment and it's, well, I'm just going to slap my logo there and people are going to love it, and and they're making it about themselves. It's about the brand, and well, of course I'm a famous brand, and people are just it's going to be awesome because we're awesome. People don't care. I think that's the reality. People don't care because we're going into a state of play. And this is back to immersion. When people are in a state of play, when people are immersed, they're vulnerable, and that's the holy grail. So anything that rubs against that doesn't feel natural to either the gaming environment and the play experience itself, or that doesn't feel like it's actually in service of the player and the player's experience, anything that rubs against that is going to get exponentially more rejection from the consumer in that specific moment than it would get when it's not in a state of play. It's like, a TV ad that's bad, and people are like, ugh. But then they move on with their lives, or a billboard that just rubs someone the wrong way, and it's like they've already forgotten about it. So that's the most important part, and that's one of the consistent things across when you look at, oh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one. Like if you're looking for a very specific example from me, one of them that I love because it's just so bad, and I hope no one's in the room here. It's a fashion brand. Ralph Lauren. So they did a Roblox game. Oh, God. They called it see, it's this bad, I already like erased it from my memory, but it was all about like the Hamptons, and like they called it East Coast Beach Club or some nonsense thing. Going into Roblox and then making it about like posh Hamptons culture, Polo Beach Club, that was the name. And just bad. And if they had done some really basic and like literally actual Ralph Lauren fans and people that are really like fond of the brand, they looked at that and you're like, what is this? So they went in with an idea of what they wanted people to feel and what they thought people loved or what they wanted to be perceived as. But when you actually look at the core consumer group of like Ralph Lauren people, where they actually intersect with Gen Z and Gen Alpha from a values perspective, it's really about the old school heritage of what Ralph Lauren was, like more the Americana, the cool like backcountry, elevated style, yes, but grounded in the nature and Americana, and has nothing to do with East Coast Hamptons Polo Beach Club elitism, not at all. Like, and that one got really, really bad reviews, online backlash left and right, and it was blatantly obvious from day one that thing wasn't going to work.
That was a really long answer.
Yeah, sorry. You asked a very complex question. I'm sorry.
No, but it was
very
a
good
great
question.
question, so definitely. But it actually means that...
A short one.
A
Maybe?
short, yeah, sure.
Maybe short
The
one?
last question before. Yeah, shoot. Yeah.
Does she get a bonus because she has to walk around from like left,
definitely,
right? Okay,
definitely.
great.
Yeah,
This is like
sure, yeah.
people on the other end of the room.
So I have a quick question.
Yeah.
And also really nice presentation.
Thank you.
Very informative and entertaining. But the question is about the consequence of gaming,
Yep.
which is how does gaming provide games providing rewards without risk? How do they shape humans and innovation? Because it makes us take less risks offline in society, and we also socialize less, network less, so we don't have the time to innovate.
Yeah, really good question. So, gosh, how short do I have to be?
No, just answer the question.
I'll be, there's two parts to what you're asking about. And one is, if you look at historically, gaming as an industry has actually been the science lab for frontier technology. NVIDIA, anyone heard of NVIDIA? Anyone owns stock in NVIDIA? That's really excited, right? Anyway, NVIDIA came out of gaming. So NVIDIA started making graphics cards. It was really simple. Oh, how do we make the best graphics cards? Where do people bend and flex them the most? Games. Cool. Let's go into games. If we make it there, we'll be okay everywhere else. NVIDIA came out of gaming. Unity, engine, 3D models, world, gaming. Unreal, same thing. The early intelligence for AI systems around AlphaGo, gaming. And now what we're seeing even more is, I don't know if you guys saw the news, it was 2 weeks ago, Google DeepMind invested in a iconic video game that's 22 years old called EVE Online. Because they want the data, because they realize that it's one of the most complex systems that is the closest to actually mimicking a real-world society and complicated human decision-making, but in a virtual environment to train AI systems with data that's actually closer to human truth rather than just text on Reddit and on the internet. So I think that's one part there where games, by their very nature, almost have always been a science lab for frontier tech that has spawned innovation in all sorts of areas. And I think with AI, that's actually just going to continue and going to proliferate and bring it to the surface even more. In terms of how do we make time for ourselves and how do you balance games with everything else? Well, my number one advice always is go out and touch grass. That should be number one. Nothing beats being outside and nothing beats being in nature. Second thing, nothing beats being with other people. We're social mammals, full stop. If you can do that in person, great. But sometimes it doesn't always work in person, and some preferences are different. So if people then who are maybe, they're very introverted, they have a hard time in real life meeting other people. If they revert to games to do that, and the alternative is that they're not having any social interaction with anyone because they're simply too introverted, oh my gosh, keep doing what you're doing. Because it actually could potentially be life-saving for some of these people. So I think it's, especially when you have kids, I have this conversation because it's, a relevant topic, but at the end of the day, games are very good for you. They're very good for children's development. They're very good for the brain, but it's like with everything really good in life, red wine, dark chocolate, everything in moderation. If you start playing video games 20 hours a day, it's also not going to be good for you, right? So, yeah, I know it wasn't a short answer. I tried. I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries.
Really good question.
A big round of applause for Bastian.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. And as Bastian said, he'll be around, so you can grab him and ask even more questions, and he will answer in his own way. A long answer, probably. But it's time for lunch now, so enjoy the lunch. The lunch has been served out in the restaurant. There's still, the barista station is open. The innovation booth, Experience Innovation booth is open. If you haven't grabbed your Lead the Future avatar yet, do that. And flip through the magazine also, and keep playing Decision Bingo in the magazine. And I'll see you back here at 1:15. Thank you so much. Enjoy the lunch.